Hey kids, look, a deer!
Today we're diving into National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation from 1989, the holiday comedy about Clark Griswold's disastrous attempt at the perfect family Christmas. Get ready for some shocking behind-the-scenes stories, including a dead squirrel, a fired director, and a brutal on-set injury that will blow your mind. Fact 1. The famous squirrel scene that terrorizes the Griswold family was an absolute nightmare to film because the trained squirrel died right before filming started. Director Jeremiah Chechik showed up to set one morning and saw everyone standing in a huddle shaking their heads. He immediately knew something was terribly wrong. The animal handler informed him that the squirrel they had been training every single day for months to run through the set had died that very morning. Some sources say it was a heart attack, while others say natural causes. Beverly D'Angelo later revealed the sad news to Juliette Lewis at a fan expo, saying, "The squirrel had a heart attack, so the squirrel we ended up using was not the original squirrel. They still had to shoot the scene that day to keep up with the production schedule, so the crew had to find a replacement squirrel that had absolutely zero training for film sets." Chechik recalled saying, "Holy f***, we're shooting that today." And the trainer simply responded, "You know, they don't live that long." Using an untrained squirrel turned the scene into total chaos behind the scenes. Juliette Lewis said the squirrel stuff took 3 full days to film. For most shots, Chevy Chase wore a stuffed squirrel on his shoulder, and they only used the real untrained squirrel for quick close-ups and the jump at the camera. The whole thing gives you a completely new perspective on that crazy scene. Fact 2.
Because every time Catherine revved up the microwave.
Chris Columbus was originally hired to direct Christmas Vacation, but quit the project after meeting with Chevy Chase because Chase was so impossibly difficult to work with. Columbus desperately needed the job at that point in his career and was living with his wife's parents. He even filmed some second unit establishing shots of Chicago that he claims are still in the finished movie. But after 2 meetings with Chase, Columbus couldn't take it anymore. Columbus later told Insider that working with Chase was fraught with pain and tension. He told Chicago Magazine that, to be completely honest, Chevy treated him like dirt. Columbus said it took everything in his power to convince himself to resign from Christmas Vacation because he couldn't make the movie with this guy. He was terrified it would end his career since he desperately needed work. Columbus went to John Hughes and said, "There's no way I can do this movie. I know I need to work, but I just can't do it with Chevy Chase." Luckily, Hughes understood and didn't hold it against him. Just 2 weeks after Columbus quit Christmas Vacation, Hughes sent him the script for another Christmas movie that needed a director. That movie was Home Alone. Columbus directed Home Alone in 1990, and it became a massive hit, earning over 6 times the amount of money that Christmas Vacation did with a budget of almost $10 million less. Fact 3. Chevy Chase actually broke his pinky finger during the famous scene where Clark has a meltdown and attacks the Christmas decorations in his yard. When the Christmas lights refuse to turn on after all his hard work, Clark completely loses it and starts punching and kicking the plastic Santa and reindeer decorations. Chase got so into the performance and was so angry while filming that he punched one of the hard plastic decorations with full force. He told the Asbury Park Press that the attack wasn't even in the script, but he was so angry that he did it anyway. Chase thought the plastic might melt or give way, but no, it was good hard plastic. He connected with such force that he broke his pinky finger right on camera. Chase later admitted to Hughes that it hurt so much, but he was such a professional that he kept filming through the intense pain without stopping the take. That's why, if you watch carefully, you'll notice Clark switches from punching the decorations to mostly kicking and clubbing them instead. His pinky was hurting too badly to keep punching, so he improvised by using his feet more. The take where he actually broke his finger is the one they used in the final cut of the movie. You can literally watch the exact moment Chase injured himself on screen. Fact 4.
Has anyone ever used it on a sled?
Not that I know of, Russ.
A young Leonardo DiCaprio auditioned to play Rusty Griswold before he became one of the biggest movie stars in the world. This was very early in DiCaprio's career when he was just starting out in Hollywood. Casting director Heidi Levitt told the American Film Institute that she remembers very vividly feeling that this kid was really special during his audition. DiCaprio immediately captivated everyone in the room with his natural talent and presence. However, Levitt explained that DiCaprio wasn't goofy enough for the role of Rusty. She said he was very thoughtful and serious, but the part required someone who could deliver more silly and comedic moments. The role ended up going to Johnny Galecki, who was only 13 years old at the time. Galecki brought exactly the right kind of dry, wacky sense of humor that director Jeremiah Chechik was looking for. Chechik later said that Galecki was just an odd kid who was very young and so dry, and his weird sense of humor is what made them really want him. Both actors went on to have incredibly successful careers. DiCaprio became one of the most acclaimed actors of his generation and won an Oscar, while Galecki starred in Roseanne and later became the lead of The Big Bang Theory for 12 years. Fact 5.
States of America. America and to the
National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation was made with a $25 million budget and grossed over $73 million at the box office, making it a solid financial success. The movie opened at number 2 behind Back to the Future December 1st, 1989, earning about $11.7 million in its opening weekend. Back in the late 80s, the opening weekend wasn't everything like it is today, and movies could keep earning money for weeks and months. Christmas Vacation was the most expensive comedy to make at that time. An article in the New York Times from 1989 pointed out that 5 years earlier, comedies and dramas were being made for $10 to $14 million. So Warner Brothers was taking a relatively risky bet, spending over $25 million on a holiday comedy. The studio wanted the film in theaters in time for Christmas, so production had a very tight schedule. Filming didn't begin until March 1989 and wrapped on June 30th, giving them only about 6 months to make the entire movie. Fact 6. During Clark Griswold's epic meltdown rant about his cheapskate boss, all the other actors in the scene were wearing cue cards hanging around their necks on ropes to help Chevy Chase remember his lines. This is one of the most famous scenes in the movie where Clark goes absolutely ballistic after learning he's not getting his Christmas bonus. The rant is full of creative insults and angry words delivered rapid fire without stopping. Beverly D'Angelo explained to the Dinner Party Download that the scene was blocked in a very specific way that would allow each actor to have a piece of rope around their necks attached to a big cue card. The rant was divided into sections and distributed among all the cast members. This way Chase could go all the way through from beginning to end without any chance of forgetting his lines or flipping his lines around. The actors didn't have the lines in exact order, so if you watch the scene carefully, you can see Chase glancing at each different person as he delivers different parts of the rant. Director Jeremiah Chachik told the Flashback Files that very little of the movie was improvised, and the screenplay by John Hughes was pretty much followed exactly as written. The cue cards were strategically placed to help Chase nail every word of the complicated monologue perfectly. It's brilliant problem solving that resulted in one of the most quotable scenes in Christmas movie history. Fact 7. The entire movie is based on a short story called Christmas 59 that John Hughes wrote for National Lampoon magazine back in December 1980. Hughes said that the studio came to him and begged for another vacation movie, and he only agreed because he had a good story to base it on. The Christmas story had been published in the magazine years earlier, and Hughes had always thought it would make a great film. If you pay really close attention while watching the movie, you'll notice a clever Easter egg reference to the original story. When Clark gets trapped in the attic and starts looking through old home movies, one of the film reels is labeled Christmas 59 as a direct nod to the short story that inspired the entire film. Hughes was known for his edgy teen movies from the 80s like Ferris Bueller's Day Off and The Breakfast Club, so he brought that same sharp sense of humor to this holiday comedy. Hughes both wrote and produced Christmas Vacation, making it the final film in the Vacation series to involve both him and the National Lampoon magazine. The short story captured Hughes's memories and experiences of Christmas celebrations that don't go according to plan, which every family can relate to during the stressful holiday season. Fact 8. The Griswold family house is located on the Warner Brothers backlot and was also used just a couple years earlier as Roger Murtaugh's home in the original Lethal Weapon movie. Chevy Chase revealed this fun fact during a Rolling Stone oral history about Christmas Vacation. If the house looks familiar to movie fans, it's no coincidence because it appears in multiple films. The Warner Brothers backlot has been used for countless movies and TV shows over the decades. Lethal Weapon came out in 1987, just 2 years before Christmas Vacation, and is also technically a Christmas movie since it takes place during the holidays. The house has that perfect suburban family home look that works well for both a cop with a big family in Lethal Weapon and the chaotic Griswold household in Christmas Vacation. It's interesting to think about Roger Murtaugh and Clark Griswold technically living in the same house, just in different movie universes. The backlot location made filming much easier since everything was controlled and they didn't have to deal with real neighbors or worry about disrupting an actual residential street. The crew could run massive amounts of Christmas lights and create total chaos without bothering anyone. Movie studios have used the same recognizable houses and streets for generations of films. Fact 9.
Is your house on fire, Clark?
No, Bethany, those are Christmas lights.
Mae Questel, who played the confused elderly Aunt Bethany, was the original voice of Betty Boop, and Christmas Vacation was her final film role before she died in 1998. Questel's film career began way back in 1930 when she became the iconic voice of Betty Boop, one of the most famous cartoon characters in history. She voiced Betty Boop for decades and became a legend in animation. Her role as Aunt Bethany came near the very end of her long and successful career. Aunt Bethany provides some of the funniest moments in Christmas Vacation with her confusion about bringing the cat wrapped as a gift and singing the national anthem instead of a Christmas carol. Questel was 79 years old during filming and brought genuine warmth and humor to the role. The cast and crew had no idea while filming that this would be her final movie appearance. A minor earthquake actually occurred while filming the arrival scene of Uncle Louie and Aunt Bethany, and eagle-eyed fans can spot the camera shaking slightly during that sequence. Questel passed away nearly a decade after Christmas Vacation was released, but her legacy lives on through both her groundbreaking voice work as Betty Boop and her memorable final performance. Fact 10. Johnny Galecki literally talked himself out of filming what could have been a classic emotional scene with Chevy Chase, and he still kicks himself for it to this day. There was a heartfelt scene in John Hughes' original script where Rusty and Clark would have a touching father-son moment together. The scene had been cut from an earlier draft of the screenplay at some point during pre-production. When they asked young Galecki what he thought about shooting the scene anyway, he made a huge mistake. Galecki told Rolling Stone that he said there was no point in filming it. He figured that somebody thought it was worth taking out at some point, so even if they shot it, the scene would probably just get cut out. He literally talked himself out of what could have been a classic scene with Chevy Chase. Now that he's a jaded Hollywood professional, Galecki realizes the error of his ways. He still kicks himself in the rear end for this decision every single day. Chevy Chase had been interested in shooting the scene and looked at young Galecki like, you just talked yourself out of a scene that John Hughes was going to write for you. Previous Vacation movies had featured similar father-son moments, so it would have fit the franchise perfectly. Galecki was only 13 years old and didn't understand the opportunity he was passing up. Fact 11.
Is a new non-caloric silicone-based kitchen.
During filming in Breckenridge, Colorado, the production got hit with a massive snowstorm that dumped 87 inches of snow in just 5 days. That's over 7 feet of snow falling in less than a week. The crew went to Breckenridge specifically because it was chosen for its usual heavy snowfall during the season, but they actually arrived to find no snow on the ground at first. They had to bring in a convoy of trucks to transport fake snow to specific locations for filming. Then nature decided to make up for it all at once with this monster blizzard. Ann Lukacs, who worked as a camera assistant on the film and was a Breckenridge local, explained that all that snow was great for skiing, but there was so much that the crew couldn't film outdoors anymore. They had to focus on interior cover sets instead. The production built a cover set on the gymnasium floor of Summit High School in Frisco, where they filmed the scene of Clark watching old home movies. Principal photography began on March 27, 1989 in Summit County, Colorado, with footage shot in Silverthorne, Breckenridge, and Frisco. Fact 12. Beverly D'Angelo improvised by grabbing Chevy Chase's crotch during the SWAT team scene and only did it on one take, hoping it might make the final cut. At the end of the movie, when police storm the Griswold house thinking Clark has kidnapped his boss, everyone freezes in place with their hands up. Ellen suddenly reaches over and grabs Clark's crotch in a spontaneous moment that wasn't in the script at all. D'Angelo told Rolling Stone that she did it spur of the moment and told Chevy right after just to see if anyone on set even noticed what she had done. She gambled that the director and editors might think it was funny enough to include in the final film. The bold move paid off, and the moment made it into the theatrical cut. It adds an extra layer of humor to an already chaotic scene and shows Ellen's unwavering support for her husband even in the most ridiculous circumstances. D'Angelo had appeared in the previous 2 Vacation movies as Ellen Griswold, so she understood the character perfectly and knew what kind of spontaneous moments would work. The chemistry between D'Angelo and Chase throughout the entire franchise is what makes the Griswold marriage feel real despite all the insane situations they find themselves in. Sometimes the best moments in comedy come from actors taking creative risks. Fact 13.
No, Bethany, those are Christmas lights.
A real earthquake occurred during filming, and if you watch very carefully, you can actually see the camera shaking slightly in the finished movie. The earthquake happened while they were shooting the scene where Uncle Louie and Aunt Bethany arrive at the Griswold house. Fortunately, nobody in the cast or crew got hurt when the earthquake struck. It was minor enough that filming was able to continue, but strong enough that the camera equipment picked up the shaking. Eagle-eyed fans who know what to look for can spot the subtle camera movement during that arrival sequence. The production chose not to reshoot the scene, even though the earthquake caused a visible technical issue. In the late 80s, film was expensive and time-consuming to shoot, so unless something was completely unusable, they would often keep takes that had minor imperfections, rather than waste time and money reshooting. The earthquake has become a fun piece of trivia that dedicated fans love to point out when rewatching the movie. Director Jeremiah Chichik was making his feature film directorial debut with Christmas Vacation after working in commercials and music videos, so dealing with an unexpected earthquake on top of all the other production challenges must have been incredibly stressful. Fact 14.
else, huh, Russ?
Despite Chevy Chase's reputation for being difficult, he was incredibly generous and patient with young Johnny Galecki during filming. Galecki was only 13 years old and told Variety in 2018 that taking on the role of Rusty was a real challenge because the character was already iconic at that point and had some heavy lifting to do comedically. His timing wasn't quite on point yet since he was so young and inexperienced. Chevy Chase volunteered himself to train Galecki in the ways of comedy timing. Chase was very patient and giving of his time, helping Galecki especially with his comedic timing and even telling him some ad-libs to say, but Chase went way beyond just helping on set. He used his lunch hours to take Galecki around to visit other comedy films that were shooting nearby at the same time. Chase brought 13-year-old Galecki to the sets of Ghostbusters 2 and Harlem Nights, where he got to meet absolute comedy legends. Galecki recalled being introduced to Red Fox, Eddie Murphy, Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, and Richard Pryor as a teenager. Can you imagine being 13 years old and getting to hang out with all these comedy icons? Galecki said Chase was terribly generous with him, and that this experience was such a seminal part of his career and understanding of comedy and life in general. Chase's mentorship clearly paid off as Galecki went on to star in The Big Bang Theory. Fact 15.
The blessing.
Production on Christmas Vacation started just 3 days after John Hughes finished wrapping production on Uncle Buck. Producer Tom Jacobson explained that John Hughes was shooting Uncle Buck at the same time they were doing prep work for Christmas Vacation. They overlapped their preparation periods, but Warner Brothers absolutely demanded that Christmas Vacation be finished in time for Christmas release. So they had to start shooting the holiday movie just 3 days after Uncle Buck wrapped in June 1989. This created an incredibly tight and stressful schedule for everyone involved. Hughes was rushing from one production straight into another with barely any time to catch his breath. The entire film had to be written, cast, shot, and edited in about 6 months to make the December 1st, 1989 release date. Principal photography began on March 27th and wrapped on June 30th, giving them less than 4 months of actual filming time. The compressed schedule explains why some creative decisions had to be made quickly, like using an untrained squirrel when the trained one died. There simply wasn't time to train another animal properly. Despite the rushed production timeline, the movie turned out brilliantly and became one of the most successful and beloved entries in the entire Vacation franchise. Sometimes tight deadlines force creativity and great results. Vac 16.
Enhances your holiday spirit.
Randy Quaid based the outrageous character of Cousin Eddie on a real person he knew growing up in Texas. According to Uprocks, Quaid copied the mannerisms of someone from his childhood and incorporated specific things like tongue clicking into the character. Cousin Eddie became one of the most memorable and quotable characters in Christmas movie history, with his ridiculous behavior and unforgettable lines like "shitter's full." Quaid's brilliant character work made Eddie feel like a real person that everyone knows, because many families actually do have a Cousin Eddie type relative who shows up unannounced and causes chaos. The character became so incredibly popular that it spawned its own direct-to-TV sequel in 2003 called National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation 2: Cousin Eddie's Island Adventure. The sequel featured Randy Quaid reprising his role along with Miriam Flynn as Catherine and focused entirely on Eddie's family. Unfortunately, that sequel has a terrible 12% rating on Rotten Tomatoes and was poorly received. A scene depicting life inside Eddie and Catherine's disgusting RV was actually filmed for Christmas Vacation but got cut from the final movie. Miriam Flynn told Rolling Stone that she wished the scene had made it because showing what their lives were like inside that motorhome was a riot. The deleted scenes might have spawned the sequel idea. Fact 17. Many of the scenes that are supposed to take place in Chicago were actually filmed in Breckenridge, Colorado. Ann Lukacs, who worked as camera assistant and was a Breckenridge local, served as a liaison between the production, the town, and the hotels. When the producer asked her, "You know what we need? Where is it?" she told him to stop looking because Breckenridge looks just like Chicago. She wasn't about to let that money leave town. The Christmas shopping scenes and other cover sets inside stores that are supposed to be Chicago were all filmed in Breckenridge. The famous scene where Clark and Cousin Eddie are shopping at Walmart is actually the Walmart in the nearby town of Frisco, Colorado. Despite Christmas Vacation being set in the Chicago area, the movie was primarily filmed in Burbank, California at Warner Brothers Studios. Only outdoor winter scenes were shot in Colorado. The set of the Griswold family's house and street is located on the Warner Brothers ranch facilities in Burbank. This kind of California doubling for other locations has been common in Hollywood for generations. Studios could control weather, lighting, and logistics much better on their own backlots. The Breckenridge and Colorado footage was used specifically for scenes where they needed authentic snow and winter landscapes that couldn't be faked in California. Fact 18. Johnny Galecki admitted that he had a massive crush on his on-screen big sister Juliette Lewis during filming. Galecki told Rolling Stone that Juliette was older than him by only 1 year, but she might as well have been on another planet. He worshipped her completely. Lewis was rock and roll even at 15 years old, with totally different energy than Galecki. She had crazy stories about what she had done the night before and with whom that blew young Galecki's mind. At that age, Galecki was, and still is, in complete awe of her. Christmas Vacation marked the film debut for both teenage actors, and Lewis would go on to become an Oscar-nominated actress. She was nominated for Best Supporting Actress for her role in Cape Fear just 2 years later in 1991. Lewis brought an edgy and rebellious quality to Audrey Griswold that made the character memorable. Both young actors have spoken fondly about their time filming Christmas Vacation. Despite Galecki's crush, they developed a good working relationship on set. The movie launched both of their careers in major ways, with Galecki going on to star in Roseanne and The Big Bang Theory, while Lewis became a respected dramatic actress. Their chemistry as bickering siblings helped make the Griswold family feel authentic. Fact 19. Director Jeremiah Chachik made his feature film directorial debut with Christmas Vacation. Despite having never watched the first two Vacation movies, Chachik had been working in commercials and music videos before landing the Christmas Vacation job. He did very moody and atmospheric commercial work that was completely different from broad comedy. Chachik told Rolling Stone that he was nervous about accepting the project because he didn't know about Chevy Chase and wasn't sure if the movie was too commercial for his style. But he agreed to direct it and ended up having a fantastic time making the film. Coming in with fresh eyes and not being overly familiar with the previous Vacation movies may have actually helped Chachik bring a unique perspective to the material. He wasn't beholden to matching the style of the earlier films directed by Harold Ramis and Amy Heckerling. Chachik deliberately tried to infuse Christmas Vacation with moments that would feel timeless, rather than just making another generic sequel. The gamble of hiring a first-time feature director paid off enormously. The movie became one of the highest-grossing and most beloved entries in the franchise. Chachik's commercial background gave him strong visual skills for creating memorable images like the house covered in 25,000 Christmas lights. Sometimes an outsider perspective is exactly what a franchise needs to stay fresh. Fact 20. Christmas Vacation was the third movie in the Vacation series, but it actually made more money than the second film, which is extremely unusual. Beverly D'Angelo told Rolling Stone that there was a little phenomenon with Christmas Vacation where even though it was the third movie in the series, it made more than European Vacation. Sequels almost always make less money than the previous entry, especially by the time you get to the third installment in a franchise. The original National Lampoons came out in 1983 and was followed by European Vacation in 1985. Both films were successful, but Christmas Vacation in 1989 exceeded expectations. The holiday setting gave the movie evergreen appeal that the previous road trip films didn't have. People watch Christmas movies every single year during the holidays, which helped Christmas Vacation build an audience over time, rather than just being popular during its initial theatrical release. The film's success led to a fourth theatrical entry, Vegas Vacation, in 1997, though that one was made without John Hughes or National Lampoon involvement. Christmas Vacation proved that focusing on the holidays and staying in one location rather than traveling worked perfectly for the Griswold family dynamic. Sometimes changing up a formula breathes new life into a franchise. And there you have it, 20 weird and surprising facts about National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. The behind-the-scenes chaos somehow resulted in comedy gold that families watch together every year. Which fact shocked you the most? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe.